I heard a very strange term today. I was in recess, and while I was playing, I came across two Hispanic kids. I know them, but I am not best friends with them per se. I already didn't like one of the kids, and the other one just seemed pretty sketchy to me. While we were playing, they thought it was funny to call me chocolate milk. Being infuriated and angry, I immediately told the teacher when we got back, and they tried to lie saying that they didn't say it at all. I was confused because the whole situation felt weird. The sketchy kid I told you about was as dark as I was and maybe even darker, so it didn't make much sense, and I was kind of embarrassed on his part. Thankfully though, since I had a reputation of being an honest, good kid and the others were known troublemakers, they believed me and the troublemakers, they got into big trouble. At the end of the day, it was just a weird situation for me, as I was obviously offended, but it felt odd at the same time. Odd because one of them looked like me, but it didn't seem that he was aware of that. I'm not sure if that's what hurt the most.
The ideals of colorism first started in the 1700s. A gentleman by the name of Willie Lynch wrote a book entitled The Willie Lynch Letter and the Making of a Slave. And in his writings and speeches, he marveled at the idea that you can create division amongst the slaves based on skin color. This calculated separation tactic would last for many generations into the present. Since then, we've dealt with racist caricatures in media such as blackface, the Sambo, and have even seen some lighter-skinned people pass as white to escape the perils of racism and injustice. In the 1900s to the 1950s, one skin color was even judged based on a brown paper bag test. If your skin color was lighter than a brown paper bag, then you were seen as attractive. If it was darker, you were rejected. This comes as no surprise, as black has always been the color of ugliness, rage, evil, and barbaric behavior. One has to ask themselves, why have we gone so long without correcting and rebelling against these divisive tactics? How do we undo the damage that has already plagued our communities for so many centuries? One of our viewers, CW, wrote in to join the conversation. When asked, when did you first experience colorism? She states, I experienced colorism when I was 5 years old. The jokes and remarks started with my cousins. I went to a dominantly white school. I had to deal with racism as well. When asked, how did it affect your childhood? She said, I kept to myself most of the time. I was sad until I became angry. I started fighting with my cousins when they teased me. They finally left me alone. My aunt was my escape from my cousins. She listened to my concerns about why my skin wasn't lighter. She began to encourage me and say that I was beautiful just the way God created me. My grandmother did the same. I began believing it. When asked, how does it still show up in your life? She said, I have heard co-workers, acquaintances, and some family members teasing me about light skin is in or dark skin is in. I don't let it bother me like I used to as a child. I love the skin I am in and know that I'm exactly how God designed me. I sat down with 3 of my cousins for a heart-to-heart about the topic of colorism, and they had a lot of great insight. Let's take a look.
So, it's an interesting topic, colorism. I think I've experienced colorism my whole entire life, in some way, shape or form, some genre or not. I think for me, my first experience of it was when I was quite young, probably about 5 or 6. I was quite dark skinned, a lot darker than I am now. I think I have become lighter, not by choice or bleaching or anything like that, because I don't agree with that. I would say it's because I've had 2 children and I've had anemia, so my skin has naturally just lightened. I don't know why, it's science. But generally, I would say I experienced that when I was young. My sister is a little bit lighter than I am. She was quite lighter than I am when I was younger. And there was always the black one, or the dark one, and the light one. And I was called Tar Pit Baby when I was younger. And I think it depicted how I saw beauty. I always saw beauty as the light-skinned one, because I'd always be the last to be picked, or men wouldn't find me attractive, or boys, should I say, at the time, wouldn't find me attractive because I was quite dark-skinned. And when I was in the Caribbean, that was perpetuated. It was always the light and the dark one. I like the dark-skinned one. And it'd be the ones that are not so attractive that would want to kind of come to you because you're darker skinned, as it was seen. I think, you know, I've heard things like, you say black, you're blue. It was just ridiculous. And I think for a long time it was an issue for me being dark skinned. Somewhere, shape or form, you start to wish that you were slightly lighter skinned. But I never took action in the sense of feeling needing to bleach, even though when I was at uni or college, I was told, oh, so don't you use like Fair and Lovely or whatever the bleaching cream is. And it was suggested that I needed to use it. I found it quite insulting as I got older, but I grew into my skin. You know, I didn't want to wear red lipstick or anything because I didn't want to be associated with, you know, there was some racist terms like, oh, you know, like a baboon because you're so dark skinned and bullshit like that. But I think it really did depict how I visioned beauty for a long time. I saw beauty as a very light skin arena where you had to be quite light and beautiful and graceful, and my body structure isn't that, you know, and it forced me into a lot of things that I could control. So I'd work out really hard. I had this really negative body image, but again, it was how did I define beauty in unconventional beauty terms, because my dark skin almost precluded me from what people understood as beautiful. I think the confidence grew with my uncle. He's a Rasta. He always says to me, Leonie, look, it's not called Fair and Lovely, it's called Dark and Lovely. He would say it's called Black Beauty for a reason. He'd say, you know, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. And those are things that stuck with me and made me feel slightly more confident in who I was becoming. I think you do need to have good people around you that really can teach you about Black history and the importance of owning your complexion, your skin tone. And I started to really embrace being dark skinned and seeing it as a sign of beauty, because I am different. I am not traditional light skin in terms of my family and stuff like that. I think, you know, as I grew up, it did shape the way I looked at beauty to a certain degree. I just assumed I wasn't naturally beautiful. No one was, you know, boys weren't beating down my door. It'd be like those that you don't really want to be beating down your door. But I think that was a confidence thing, because for a long time, I saw beauty as being white or light. And that was perpetuated when I had my two children. Well, my son first, he's quite light skinned. His dad's quite fair skinned. And I found that fair skinned men were more attractive to me. I have no idea why. And white men, not sure why, you know, it's, and not that it bothers me, I just think it was something, I almost thought it was like a fetishism for them. In my mind, that's how I saw it. But I think when I owned my beauty and really started to dress how I felt confident and just really sort of own the beauty within me and seeing it more than skin deep, I think that's when I started to really naturally glow up, so to speak, in the sense of I wasn't counting on anybody to tell me that I was beautiful. I just knew that I have a really beautiful complexion. I started dressing to it. I didn't wear a lot of makeup. I do wear lipstick because it's something I really enjoy. I think it just enhances anybody's natural beauty. I think it's the confidence. But I also believe that if it wasn't for my uncle, I probably would still be a little, you know, down on my skin tone. And I think it's necessary. I think it's really necessary to have advocates and that talk about beauty as it not being one-dimensional. There is the beauty that is internal, that glows so brightly, that makes you beautiful outside. I think colorism makes you scared of being who you are, and you shrink, not in just beauty terms, but shrink in your job or in the way you ask for things, in the way you demand things or command better or being treated more respect. I think when you have that colorism, you know, I experienced it because my children are light skinned, and I experienced the adversity of them of them being light skinned, because they're always told that because they're light skinned they'll have a better chance in life, and it also makes them feel inferior of being light skinned against me being dark skinned. And I don't talk about color with my children, not because I'm ignorant of color or I just want to hide the fact. It's just that when I was having my son, I was always told that you're jealous of his light skin, and that can make you feel like you're not doing a good job as a person, as a human being. So I didn't discuss color with my children. It wasn't you're beautiful because you're light skinned, or because you've got long fair hair, or BS like that. I always worked on their beauty internally. So it's like, okay, you're beautiful because you are yourself. You've owned who you're becoming. You're accountable for your behavior and your actions. What makes you beautiful is that you're kind, you're compassionate, you live up to your truth. That's true beauty. You honor people, you honor yourself. Beauty isn't skin deep. That is an element, a very one-dimensional element of beauty. But beauty is the character that you're building. So I spend a lot of time building my children's characters and focusing on more than the skin complexion, because we're quite adverse, I would say, because they are light skinned and I'm dark skinned, and I didn't see their perspective as a light skinned child until they entered into my family, where it's constantly spoke about in some way, shape or form that they would have better opportunities because they're light skinned. And being a dark skinned woman, I've been kind of passed over for promotion, but I think there was more elements to it. But I also know that I naturally am able to walk into any role that I want because of my confidence in what I can deliver, and I walk away from roles that I don't want to do because I've turned colorism into a bit of a superpower, because it only becomes more and more powerful when you accept that there has to be differentiations in skin tone which makes you better or lesser than somebody. And I don't believe that. I believe that we're all human beings and we're all here to live our own destiny, our own purpose. And because of that, I've started erasing those color lines in the sense of it's not what I discuss, it's not my topic of interest. I know I can't change that for everybody and everybody around me, but having experienced colorism myself and being called, tar pit baby and all that BS, I think that struggle has made me honor the beauty of being me and helping me to perpetuate that in my children, even though they are lighter skinned than me. I let them show that I try to instill that true beauty isn't the color of your skin, and it never will be. And you can't allow your skin tone to be the door opener for you. Even if people want that to be, you've got to allow the merit of your character to be the door opener. And anybody that wants to have that conversation, it's about educating them and expressing your own beauty, which is the power of knowledge and education. And I think for me, I know colorism exists. I'm not eradicating it by trying to pretend it doesn't exist. I feel like there is certain power given to it by me not honoring my children for who they are. And that's the key for me, is making sure that they're honored as a human being and they don't see themselves as better than anybody because they're light skinned, or I don't see myself better than them because I'm dark skinned. I just feel there's an individuality of us all, and we are not meant to be the same. I think we all have our own individual fingerprint so that we can put our own print on the world. And my experience of colorism has forced me to push that as a focus rather than the other way around. So that's me and my colorism experience. It's a very interesting one. I think colorism it's never going to go away. I think it's never going to go away because of slavery, and there's that whole, if you was dark skinned, you was in the fields, if you was light skinned, you worked in the house. So there's always that hierarchy that is perpetuated. But I don't want to continue that with my children. So it's not a topic that we discuss, that it becomes a way of them feeling or focusing on where and how they should depict their life based on the color of their skin. That doesn't work for me. But again, what I want and what this and society wants is two different things, but I can only manage what's in my household.
Hello, ladies.
Hey.
This week, we'll be discussing a very special and important topic. But before we get into that, I want you guys to introduce yourselves. You don't have to give your first name. You can give a nickname or initials, however you want to be addressed throughout. Just go ahead and do that now. Whoever wants to start.
I'm prepared for introduction. I'm Joe.
Okay.
And Jen.
Joe and Jen. So we're going to get into it. The topic is colorism, right? And we know what it is. But I want to know from you guys, when you hear that term colorism, what's the first set of words that come into your mind?
Being too dark, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, every time I think of colorism, I just always think about all them light-skinned people that ain't look too good, but just because they're like,
They look pretty.
it's
Yeah, but
like I need you down on a tree like how you look, because right now this ain't it. Okay? But it's like I understand if everybody boosting up your confidence, then you know what, do you, but the stink attitude that come with it mean with
yeah. And that's kind of like why I wanted to have that conversation too, because like you said, there are times when you might see somebody and they feel that they look better than you, or it's always this competition that is put against the different complexions. And I feel like it's done to a point that it becomes almost dangerous in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to give a disclaimer too to anybody who's going to be watching this that yes, every shade have their story with colorism. You know, even for myself as a light person, not being liked automatically without people knowing me. However, I will say, in all fairness, when you discuss the topic and its origins, you can't deny that it was intended to make put darker skinned complexion people at a more disadvantage.
Yes.
So we always find out now that there's some people of maybe mixed race, maybe light complexion that will share their stories, and it's all valid. But I try to be responsible enough to know that, because I've seen it for myself throughout growing up. You know, in our family, I was probably one of the lightest one. Everybody else around me, you know, is dark skin. So I've always took on the role of trying to like defend any of my friends that were dark skinned, so I could see for myself that they had it harder than I did. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this conversation is very important, and why I wanted you guys to chime in on your personal experiences. So that's the first question. What misconception do you think people have about colorism, in your opinion?
I'm not sure if I've ever come across too much of the misconceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just there in the forefront of my memories.
You did say something, the one about, you know, how people feel like because they're light skinned, they automatically look attractive. That could be one. That's a good one that you brought up.
Because most times what happens is,
Mm-hmm.
I guess because it's so embedded from all those years of putting the lighter skinned above compared to the darker skinned people, it's like we ain't in that field anymore, but that mentality still exists because it's gonna break down and get rid of if that is being brought down from generation to generation to generation, that kind of thought process. But I think now in this day and age, even though it's still heavy, it's still prevalent, it's like more people is conscious of it and noticing it a lot more as compared to when we was kids. I think when we was kids, it's like everything's like, okay, whatever, moving on. But it's like with this generation of people, we actually making a conscious decision of looking at all these things and why these things happen, why we doing these things, and trying to steer it for a different direction. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
Want to add anything, Jen?
Yeah, I think there's several misconceptions that they have. The first one, just to jump on it, that only the darker skinned people have to deal with colorism. Because there's some people, if you ain't dark enough, it's like, well, you can't be in our clique because you don't roll with us. You need to be brown or something else. Or there's this whole group of people that's overlooked, the Brownsville people. Not like myself, more like my sister, whereas you can see she's not considered dark skinned, she is brown. Whereas I am like, I'm darker skinned. Pure point blank, you see me, ain't no way to go around this 75% dark chocolate. You know what I mean? But
Check
with
it.
her, she's more of a cocoa brown. Or even my son, who's like, the misconception is okay, they don't feel it too. You know what I mean? It's either you dark skin or you light skin. Those are the only people. And I literally talked to a friend of mine. She was like, but I'm brown skin. I'm in the middle. What about me? Like, I don't want to get hit. So she's like, I appreciate I'm not on your. And she was like, but in nobody looking for me. Nobody sing them songs specifically for me. And I'm
That's
like,
weird. Me, I've never think about that.
I was like, yeah, that's true. So I rather, for me, I would rather not be the topic of the conversation or in the heat of it. And another misconception is that people think colorism is just out of preference. Like, oh, that's what I prefer. Hold up. No, wait a minute. Because you didn't come up with that preference on your own. It was bred into
Exactly.
you. It's literally genetic at this point. It is ancestral at this point. It's just when we back home, although you notice the difference. I was always the darker one of all my siblings. I don't know how they all got darker as we aged because now they're catching up to me, you know? But you know about it in the Caribbean. It's a thing like, okay, you have your like your clear skin. We don't say light skin. You have your clear skin, you have your red bone, you have your Frenchies, then there's everybody else. Everybody else in the same pot. But it was never like, oh, they better than you than that. The light skin people just thought it was better, but nobody actually treated you different. Whereas in the States, they take and this misconstrue that they have this preference or this thing that they were nurtured into and groomed into, they have this thing like, oh, it's so objective. No, it's subjective. You might prefer lighter skin here, where another county prefers darker skin. Like, it's not the same argument across the board. There's people who get missed out, or the gaps of people that they don't even get talked about, discussed. The misconception is that this is like the end all be all type of situation. This is just something that's out of the just popped up. No, it's been around for ages. It's going to be around until everybody mix, if that's what happens. So,
It's true. Any personal experiences that stand out to you
of
that you would
course,
like to share? That you like to share?
I've been in the middle, so me ain't got no stories to share.
You ain't got no story, not one. Nobody ever call you a name or anything.
Man, I really, because like when I'm thinking about like my personal experiences with it, I really never had nothing unless like I maybe if I with somebody that's lighter than me, and but I never really had any
Direct.
and exactly it's like okay, the light skinned girl, okay, go with the light skinned girl, that's okay, because me I really care any which way. But I maybe because I just was ignorant to the fact just growing up in La La Land, because like you say, is have the Frenchies, the light skinned girl them and all them thing there, and then there's everybody else. It's just like okay, and I just live in my life because I know I ain't fit into the light skin category, so I just over here chilling, you know. But I really can't think of nothing
yeah, there was
too
never anything
about
with
me.
growing up. Growing up, although it was never used against me negatively, I can remember as young as the age of 6, knowing I was darker than all my
Yeah,
like, although Joel is the color she is brown now, she was so much lighter when we was younger. You know what I mean? Living in the sun back home, you just end up getting darker eventually. But you see how this complexion I have? I was darker than this. Like, I was down there great. If you could feel me.
it's like
So growing up, I already knew, okay, me and one of my other brothers, I was like, okay, we're the two darker ones, we the ugly ones. Nobody ever said that to me. I don't know where it came from. I don't know how it got ingrained in me, but I knew that. It just so happened that I had a good shape. I was a girl with a big bum. So it was like, you know what I mean? All that I wash away when people look at me. They didn't even see color anymore because most of us back home, we brown, we dark, we whatever. I can remember that being young and growing up, and it never was used against me negatively. It never was when I was growing up on the islands. It never used against me negatively. But then I got to college. I went to Central Pennsylvania. Who sent me? Who sent me? But I'm here in Pittsburgh and I'm at the airport. And I could remember just waiting for my taxi to come. Mind you, I am not asking nobody for nothing. I just minding my own business on my phone, my flip phone back in the day. You know what I mean? This is like 2006, 2007. And this guy on this little sweeper cart rolling around, and all of a sudden, mind you, he's the same color as me. Same color as me. I'm maybe 17, 18 at this point in time. And I just remember him rolling up and stopping like hard in front of me, like, hey, yo, shorty, you look good for a dark skin girl. I was like, I literally looked at him like, huh? Huh? And then he rolled off. I don't know this man from nowhere. I don't know who he is, where he from. All I know is he rolled up and say, hey, yo, shorty, you look good for a dark skin girl. That's the first time I ever heard that phrase. First time. Mind you, I've never heard that come from a white person mouth. I never hear that come from somebody from the West Indies, from Pacific Islands, and I've had friends from all over. I've never heard it come from somebody from Asia in that area, whether they're Indian or whatnot. It never heard that come from anybody mouth except for a black man.
Because it
From
always
the states, mind you.
it
These stateside. It sounds crazy, but it's only been stateside. I guess because he dark skinned, he thinks that you can't look good and be dark skinned because he wasn't the best looking dude. But I wouldn't tell him he didn't look good because he's dark skinned. He don't look good because his features. That's just him. My preference ain't for his face type of situation. But to hear that, and then the second time I was aware that okay, I'm different was when, unfortunately, I had a college friend who from St. Croix, mind you. He been in the States way too long, been around people way too long, because then he gonna start saying, oh, no, the dark skin one. And I look at him like, who you talking about? No, not that dark skin one, this dark skin one, this dark skin one. Who you talking about? Me? And he was like, yeah, you're the dark skin. I was like, I'm a black woman. That's what I know I am. So what you is? And then he just roll cutty eyes and walk off. I'm like, you darker than me. So what you trying to say? Like, you know what I mean? It's always been the guys that's dark as me or darker than me saying something. I've dated light skinned dudes and they never say nothing about skin complexion, mind. Never. But it's always the darker dudes that I guess they feel some type of way about their skin color. And then they kind of like try to like throw it in my face. And I'm like, I have no problems with my skin color. I do know people unfortunately might see my skin color as an issue to them. And I started to feel like maybe it is an issue as I was growing up in the States. Like having my adulthood in the States, I started to feel like maybe it's an issue to the point I was like, when my son and my children are born, like I hope they get a mixture of my husband's color and my color. So that means they're gonna be brown, you know what I mean? They don't have to worry about being too light or being too dark. They could just be brown. And now I have this little highlighter son where he's lighter than both me and his father. I'm like, okay, but I'm sure he's gonna get brown. Part of me is like, okay, he's in the sun, he'll be fine. He don't have to what we're getting too dark. You know what I mean? Or anybody saying, oh, you have to get out to the sun because you're getting too dark. He's like the perfect shade, and you could tell he's the perfect shade because everybody just, oh, he looks so flawless. First of all, I call him a girl. Oh, you're so flawless. Oh, your skin is so beautiful. And I'm like, is it because of the color of his skin type of situation, or is it because the texture of his skin? Because he has some really silky skin, but is it because of that or is it because of the color? Like it's in the back of my mind. I'll like try not to let it affect me. It's like I have to battle with it on a regular basis. Not a daily, but like on a weekly basis, I have to battle with that colorism issue.
That's so true what you said too. And you are right. You would see it a lot more stateside because of the fact that it's ingrained in the United States, their history with, the slave mentality. It started, I think it was the 1700s or whatever, with Willie Lynch and, or the 1800s with Willie Lynch trying to divide our group of people, right? And so you have this thing where the light slave works in the inside of the house, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then the one in the field, like Joe had mentioned earlier, and it's for the same fact of, okay, well, the light one, we don't want to ruin them, so let's put them in the house where they're safe from the sun so they don't get any darker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the Sambo image and those caricatures that came about, the
Yeah.
Aunt Jemima,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole idea that dark skin is equated with a beast or being ugly, or
Agree.
so
Mm-hmm.
all of those things were very prevalent, especially in the media back then, up even till now. When you have music videos, all the rappers wanted the light skinned girl in the music videos.
The
It
mixed
took years
girl.
before we see it took years before we saw a dark skinned woman, a dark skinned queen taking the front stage of a music video. Because a lot of guys thought that, oh, that's not my preference. I like light skinned girls. Everybody can't freaking have that as a preference. It is something that has been indoctrinated and put into your mind, like we stated. And so that's where all of that come from. So here, stateside, they live with it every single day, even in their household, at
Mm-hmm.
work, everywhere they go, you see it, even in magazines. It's almost sickening to a sense. Teachers, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the islands, everybody like, looks the same. You see different shades all the time. You're used to it.
Mm-hmm.
You're used to it. Here, there is it's more of a, this person is pretty, treat them good. If they're this color or darker, you have to like turn up your face every time you see them. So maybe that could be also why you stated when you were younger, nobody told you anything, but you had a feeling like you felt ugly because of the fact that sometimes we don't say it, but you might see the person's face when they look at you, you know?
The
So
microaggression.
that could be. They might scrunch like when they look at the other shades of your siblings and they say, oh, hey, hey, especially in church, hey, girl, oh, she's so cute. And then they get to the one that look the darkest and they're like, oh. So that little change you could pick up on as a child. You don't have a name for it, but you just know it feels strange, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that could be also why, but you touched on something too that I want you guys to go more into is how do you plan on protecting your children, teaching them what values do you plan on doing? Is there stuff you already have done to get them prepared? You know what I mean? Joe or Jen?
Well,
Do you
mine,
guys plan on doing anything
of
specific
course,
or?
you have to. You kind of have to. You have to raise your kids mindfully and intentfully in this day and age because social media is everywhere. Whether we want them to get on it or not, eventually there comes an age where they're gonna have to be using it because they want to keep up with the times. They have to keep up with technology, not necessarily being with the Joneses, but to be successful in this life, you kind of have to know how to maneuver through the internet, and you're gonna see those things, and it's in magazines and all these things. And I can remember when we was younger, it's actually the opposite. Anytime 2005 and earlier, it was always regular to see mixed women, whether they dark skin, brown skin,
Mm-hmm.
light skin, white women, all of that in all the music videos. I can remember Zapp and Rogers videos and seeing them with beautiful brown skin. When you seeing the song Candy, all these different shades
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
matter, they just loved women, you know what I mean?
Right,
Versus
right.
now, where unfortunately it's getting to a place where they think lighter gets you closer to riches, or only when you have money, or only when you look good enough, you get you can get lighter skinned women and get white women. I'm going to teach my child that has nothing to do with who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Your wealth does not come with who you can buy,
Right.
color or their status, or have nothing to do with it. Your worth have nothing to do with it. And that, although you might think it's a preference, is also shackled. Do
Mm-hmm.
not shackle yourself to things that are subjective because they're gonna change. Every decade could be a new trend. Literally, next thing
Exactly.
you know, instead of being the thing to go with somebody that's light skin or dark skin, the thing is brown skin now. You know what I mean? Or whatever it may be, that it can change so abruptly that you can't go on off of what this other person is doing. Oh well, that's my idol. I'm gonna do what he does. That's that's not how you live your life, because you end up going down the same road. You don't even know what they're doing behind closed doors. For all you know, they're saying one thing in front of your face, and behind cameras, they're doing another thing. So I have to be intentful, especially if I get our boys. That's a possibility. But right now I have a son. I definitely have a more intentful parenting plan because he is a male in this, the black male. There's a lot of odds against him, but at the same time, he is a perpetrator, or I should say, males are a perpetrator in our today's society against black women. You know what I mean? So not am I responsible for raising a young man that understands how to respect everybody and to stand up for himself and to stand up for those weaker than him. But I have to tell him, explain to him why. Hey, yes, you have this skin tone, but you will see that XYZ happens to your friends if they're darker or maybe if they're lighter. You're not immune to it, but what can definitely happen is you will see them being affected negatively because of their skin tone and how do you respond to it. So I have to teach him with wisdom how to handle certain situations, how to recognize certain situations. I don't want him to be with his friends and say they're going up to a party and he's like, dang, why my friend being treated this way and I'm not treated this way and this friend's not treated this way? No, you have to recognize it. Okay, let me peep game. Okay, so my friend and my friend, we all dress the same. We run with the same type of mentality and movement, but this friend is either lighter or this friend is darker. You know what I mean? Okay, now I recognize. Let me step and see if I have to protect this friend or speak up for this friend type of situation. So that's what I want to be intentful for. Recognizing situations, recognizing if you should step in or not, and then what to do when you're about to step in.
That's true. That's
See, I wish I could have a plan like that because I know I have to teach these different life lessons, but it's like, how do you even go about it? Because growing up here and then back home is two completely different things that I was not prepared for. Because it's like back home, you in kindergarten, you in daycare and all this stuff, and you don't understanding the fact of racism. You understanding the fact that just because you're a girl or you're a boy, you're different from each other. You have the different things that's expected of you and what's not. Because I could clearly remember being like kindergarten and first grade, and you had like the Martin Luther King videos. They would show you every Black History month. I remember seeing all of this, but here I'm a predominantly white or Hispanic area. In my daughter's school, I can literally count on both hands
how many?
how many Black children there.
Yes.
Like, how do I properly go about teaching her all these things and not making her think that all of her friends might possibly, like I'm not saying these people are against you or anything like that, but you have to be mindful that the fact that you are this color, you might be treated differently compared to your friends that you have. Because when my daughter was born, she was light. Yeah, that's why she was like a little white baby, because she was so light. And now she's like grown into her color. And she's still pretty on the lighter side because she's still very lighter than I am. But she's darker than what she used to be. So it's like she's there in that middle spot that Jen was talking about, where she's not exactly light skinned, she's not exactly dark skinned. And it's just maneuvering her to understand that there are things in the world that you have to be mindful of and not be like me, just going la 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 la, living your life and doing stuff, especially since we're not in the environment of back home where everything was fine. It's like here in the States, it's a completely different kind of beast, and trying to figure out how to raise children not only in this different environment but this different day and age. It's like, where do I even start? Where do I begin? Especially since it's like a whole new beginning that you're trying to do. It's like you can't use the same books or the same thoughts or processes as before, because it's completely different. It's like you have to wing it and hope that you did it the right way. And if you messed it up, hope aim so bad that you can't backtrack. to try and come
Right.
again, So it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. What we gonna do if we doing it, okay? But
Well, I could feel you because Savion went to a school where he was one of 3 black people, and 2 of them end up leaving, and he was the only one.
Oh wow.
Everybody else, and it was 99% Hispanic, white Hispanic, and those who were black Hispanic didn't know that they were black. They have this mentality that they're white, and they, so it was very difficult. Just start with what you expose them to, right? You could start off like that. Maybe, and thank God that now we have movies that are implementing more African American characters. We could start off there, because this is the best generation I've seen handle that issue. And then it's just like you said, you have to wing it, but you have to set aside. It's more work on your part. You're gonna have to do more of the educating.
Yeah.
Because especially now that they're trying to remove those things from the school system and the curriculum, it's going to be our responsibility. But you start off small. I used to show him movies, even some movies from back then. Like I think Corina is one that I had used to like.
Okay.
With Whoopi Goldberg and this other girl, a white girl, and that deals with the race issue in a light way.
Yeah.
Where the children could follow it. You know what I mean? So it's tuning into all those different types. I also show him old school shows, right? Like the Family Matters and all those other shows that used to talk about certain things.
Yeah.
So you try to do it in a light way with TV shows and movies so they get, used to it over the ages. And you just hope that the books that they're reading and everything that they're taking in is like a balance. Even the books they're reading, you try to look for characters that are of different cultural backgrounds. But unfortunately, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's gonna be more work on our part as parents.
Yeah.
Because you can no longer wait for the school to teach them or the daycare. They ain't doing that. Another thing too, like we said, when you give them toys and you want to make sure you give them, I know back then we had issues with the Barbie. Everybody got a white Barbie. No, now they're trying to, show that better. We try to teach them through, their ethnic truth, their hair. Let them wear their natural hairstyle. Why not? Let them be themselves and not see anything wrong with it. I saw a podcast where a lady was talking about how she had flat ironed her daughter's hair, and it was summertime now. She went with her white friends, and she had to jump in the pool to swim.
Yeah.
And she was so scared. She jumped out the water. She was like, no, because then my friend is going to see how my hair really looks, mommy. So it's not having that conversation to tell them, look, this is what it is. This is the beauty. Find beauty in it being awkward. You know what I mean? Because it's not normalized doesn't mean it's not beautiful.
Correct.
So no matter if she's brown or half brown, light brown, brown, whatever the color shade, brown, there's like so many shades. No matter what shade you fall in, you look good.
You just have to build confidence inside of them from the beginning.
Right.
So
you have to do that.
Like, whatever. He's like, okay.
Yeah. And even with me, like you see how I look when I go in the sun? I remember when I used to visit the islands. I always had a tan. After 20 minutes in the sun, I get a tan. And my skin color would change. And I come back up here to the States, go to school, darker than what they know me to be. And it's like, you look weird. Because it's just.
And that's what I told me, because it's always outside, but they need to catch a tan, Now you come back with your little tan, it's a problem? I'm confused.
And now the tan is the in thing. They're trying to get tan now by force. So that just shows you we don't know what we're doing. We have to take hold of it, and we have to protect our children from what is going on externally, because we know people don't know what they're doing until later on. So even though you don't have a plan, you don't need a physical plan. just try to use any little moment you can and just wing it, like you said. I know I used to, sorry to cut you. I used to try to show savior on different people in the magazine, right? Because I'm like, oh, my son not gonna be, he's not gonna be racist against anybody. So I remember, and because he go to school with predominantly white Hispanic, he used to watch like all these Disney shows. Oh, she looks pretty, mom, and I'm like, okay, okay. And I started to see like a little trend and hit me. Oh, let me open up my Essence magazine and my Ebony. How she look? She look pretty too, right? She look pretty too, right? And he would be like, yeah, mom, yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm just making sure.
Like you like all of them. One you look good, your favorite, what a favorite, you're in it,
Yeah,
you know?
right.
Because
Like, yeah.
it'll be complicated, but I will say, I did like her teachers in her daycare. The daycare itself was kind of iffy because in her daycare, it was only two of them. And it had this one time they called me and they was like, "Oh, you have to come and pick her up. She fell." No, the bookshelf, because they like a tiny bookshelf thing, like probably like really low. She ran into it and she hurt herself. I rushed her to the school and like, okay, where she is. Just like, what happened? I was like, I got a call that says she ran into the bookshelf, and it's like, she didn't run into the girl there. She's perfectly fine. It's the other black child that went into the bookshelf. I was like, so, and I looking at the teacher, and she's like, I didn't call. It was the director, and I was like, you really couldn't figure out
Which
black
which
child?
child. So now, I made over hanging like 20 minutes because I literally down the street where her mother is, who all the way down the road now, ain't no she child hot. But I hear because you mix up the only two black children in school, I'm confused. I'm not confused, but come on. But when she got older and she got put in a different class, I really loved her teachers. She always had really good teachers. And except for one of them, I didn't care for she, but this particular set, they recognize that, okay, we understand she is now the only black child we have in our school, but they spoke into her so much. They told her how they admire her hair. They tell her, they speak so much love into her. I loved it so much. Because I was like, I'm doing this and I understand this, but they weren't the, oh, you know, we don't see color, we love all our... No, they understood that there is clearly a difference. But that's not gonna mean we're gonna treat her bad or anything like that. We're gonna tell her that yes, you are different compared to your other classes, so that'll make you any less. And that's what they was doing all the time. And to this day, it's been like years since she's been there, but she still remember them and always talk about them. I'm like, I don't even know what it is that COVID happened. I don't even know if they still work at the daycare, you know? But I always thought that like they always made it a point to show her that you're special, you're good, you're not less than. You're just as fine as everybody else. And I love that for her. Now in this school, I don't know anything about this school. Like, I know, but I don't know. Is better, is this, is that. Because of COVID, you can't even talk to the teachers properly. They have like the little dojo thing, but it's like, it's not the same to feel out the kind of area you're in and what you're dealing with. Because then if something happens, it's like, did something happen because kids are just naturally assholes, or because she's different from everybody else? You know? I'm hoping it's just because kids are assholes. But it's like you can only hope for the best because you're not there to protect them constantly. You have to give them the tools, teach them what to do and all of this stuff. Not only because they're like, you know, black in a white area or whatever. It's just because you're outside in the outside world and the world is crazy right now. But it's so complicated.
It really is. Do you guys see us fixing it at all, or how do we fix it? What is your suggestion, or what do you think?
I mean, like, it starts with acknowledging why this preference is a preference. Because, like I said, most of this generation that we're in, they're seeing that, they're realizing that, they're calling out things that we didn't even notice. Look like when they say like Martin and the Proud Family and all these shows that had the light skinned friend who was always the kind of nicer one, and then they had the dark skinned friend that was always loud
Right attitude.
and rude. And it's like I never put 2 and 5 together before. And
Yeah.
I started, it's like, huh? There, because it's like, how come it never been like too medium, too dark, too light, or whatever? And one of them have those kind of personality traits. It's always the darker skinned one has the loud and abrasive personality compared to more, like the ladylike, softer spoken, more
Right.
as kind of thing going on. So it's like you don't ever notice those kind of cues until now when you're actually openly recognizing it. Like, okay, I see it now. Because like Jen said at the beginning, back home they have the light side, they have the medium, but we are all so cool and friends together. So you just think like, okay, yeah, be friends, and that's what happened. Like in other people's personalities and mindsets, they probably have like a different trait. They're seeing it in a different way because that's what they've been conditioned to think it as. Just like in certain communities, like I'm a big nerd. I'm a blurred. Apparently, I didn't know blurred was a specific thing until I moved to the States, because apparently black faces in like the anime community and the comic book community, it's seen as we're approaching on this other thing that we shouldn't be involved in because it's not our thing. And it's like,
please,
I confused, but okay, so now we have to have our own safe space as nerds and anime and comic lovers as compared to just one giant thing. Don't forget what my touch. But it's the fact that we have to do these different things to protect ourselves and to be able to just live your lives. It's just crazy. It's like we're in what year right now? I know right now a lot of things going on in the world that makes you think we back a couple thousand decades, but it shouldn't be like this. We have to openly and honestly have these kinds of talks and communications to why is why and what is what, so then we could think about, okay, how do we not continue on this path? Do we understand that everything is fine and do the inclusion kind of thing, which it should be inclusion, period, across the board, no matter what is what. But then it's looked at as, okay, they have this type of person in this group and that group, but why are they there? Is it just for that token person to have there, or they're actually trying to show that everyone is welcomed? So it's always that question.
Should be a thing. I don't think inclusion should be forced down anybody's throat. As an author myself, I draw and I write about the world that I understand. I shouldn't be made a force to put people of different ethnicities and colors and all this extra stuff into my writing if I don't see it. Exactly. If I don't have that mapping in my mind. So I personally don't think that other authors or stuff should be made and forced to write an Indian character in, made and forced to write an Arabic character or an Ethiopian or a Caribbean. No, write your own story. That's why when you hear about Bollywood, you think you can force them to do and put characters in their movies. Bollywood is the highest grossing set of actors and actresses in the world. We always think and look at Hollywood, and people need to realize you have to sometimes create for your own community. And it's not to say we need to segregate things, because that's not the same. It says flow, but don't force. Flow, but don't force. If somebody said, I don't want you in my community, okay, well, we'll build our own, and don't come over here trying to force yourself in here if you don't want this in yours type of situation. It's about a flow, because there's some communities that everybody's welcome. Everybody is included. And that comes down to, we're going off the segment of colorism, we're getting into racism and classism and segregation type of situation. Where if you just think about colorism, it is not just the Black community. That's another misconception. That it's just the Black community that thinks about colorism. Because right now in India, they're saying that it is booming the aesthetic community when it comes to lightening, skin lightening processes. I'm like, whoa, I did not think that over there
And
we
in
want
the
to,
community
but
too.
comes down to people thinking that maybe brighter and lighter is better. Maybe it's more beautiful, but it comes down to being who colonized majority of the world. You know what I mean? We were all here before, good and dandy, but who colonized the Western world? It was Europeans. It was Spaniards. It was the French. They colonized majority of the Western world. And we have to face the fact that we don't have to live by those ideas. So once again, you asked, how do you see us fixing it? I fix other people, but I can live my and hope that my truth gets to somebody else. And I can teach my kids and I can help my husband. And I could, because when I met my husband, he was like, you know what's crazy? He was like, before, back in the day, they tell you as a man, you need to like a red skin girl. That red skin girls are just top notch. He was like, I don't know why that was the thing. All I remember is Zaita was better. He was like, and now I meet you. And he's like, you're one of the prettier girls I've ever met, if not the prettiest girl. Doesn't matter skin color. And I was like, because people just feel like because they heard it, and then they heard it from this person, and that person heard it from this person, that those things mean you have to live it. Just like everybody thought that a black girl had to have hips, she had to have a big banana, she gotta walk like this. No, you could be a nice, slender, petite black girl. Doesn't mean it doesn't you're trying to be white. You know what I mean?
But even back then, having a bana back in the days, having a butt was a bad thing too. So it has its phases.
Exactly.
But that's what I'm saying. See, here it was a bad thing. Because here they would say, if you have a big butt, right? It was like, oh, her butt too big. Oh, no.
And I'm
oh, I
like,
need her skinnier. But that's what I'm saying. Everything changes and they always change in their mind.
Yep.
And I think that's what, and I think what Joe said, I want to put both of y'all solutions together because I think it's a balance where the inclusion part is not necessarily to say, well, forcing you to put people in everything, but to make the space. You know what I mean? Like, because, like you said, there's Bollywood, there's all these other things, but remember, a lot of people didn't hear the Black person story until recently. Some people haven't heard other people's stories. So inclusion in the sense of just allow everybody to have the chance to be a part of or be allowed to do something, like you said, Jen, to tell their story and be willing to be receptive to it. Because if I'm telling my story, who are you to tell me that I can't say it?
Yep.
And I think that's where we went wrong. Just let people tell their stories as is without taking it too personally and understand that everybody is different. Correct. You can't fix everybody, but just give that space. Yeah. And I think that's a good way to do it. But you're so right. Now, all of a sudden, everybody want to be thick. I remember I've been thick so long. Hear me.
Okay.
Well, where this was when I was younger. When I was younger, nobody was wanting a thick person.
All the BBW love is like where I was when I was home on a Friday, Saturday night doing nothing, just nothing at all.
Okay. All of a sudden.
And I think that's because, and that adds into because like when Jen just now said like, oh, when she was younger, she always thought that she was. I was shocked because I always have it. We always fight about who's the prettiest sister, and I'm like, you're so gorgeous. Look at your skin, because she has really nice skin. It's just like I'm just like always in awe of this goddess that I looking up to and thinking I could never be pretty as her. And then she goes like, "You're so pretty," and I'm like, "No." It's like crazy how people think. It's like you just like they say, you never know what people thinking in their head because it's just opposites.
But that's good that you guys as siblings was able to do that. That's good you guys were able to do that because a lot of siblings don't have that, you know.
Correct.
Because a lot of families encourage the clashing with jokes. You know, when you hear your family make a joke, don't give it to the little dark one, and give it to the little red faced one, and they encourage that nonsense with the siblings and the cousins and all that stuff. So it's good when I guess that's also another thing you can do. Make sure that your family, like Jen said, and your immediate people are not affected by that. But it's good y'all had that kind of relationship and that dynamic.
And the thing with it is, our family have that dynamic. I don't know if your viewers know, but you're our cousins. We're
Yes,
sisters,
yes.
and you're our cousin. And the times that I visited you, the weird thing about it is, I would visit Tiffany. I'd be like, "You see how dark eyes gonna get? Eyes gonna get me?" And she's like, "No, you just got time. Ain't nobody, nobody paying attention to that." And the thing about it is, she never paid attention to skin tone.
Ever.
However, not all the cousins in that house was. I always said it. You know your sister is a tonist. Like I was telling, I'm like, what is up with you with skin tones? And
Yes,
I never understood it. But when you said it, I'm like, oh, that's true. In the same household, but everybody think differently. Back home for us,
yes,
when I tell my siblings, oh, I was lighter than me, they can't see it. They don't remember themselves being so light because everybody got so much darker. Whereas I kind of lightened up and stayed, this nice visual 75% dark chocolate, where everybody else kind of met up with me, and now we all different shades of brown.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're all like, yeah, we all cool. We just all thought we looked alike. You know what I mean? I'm like, no, there's clear differences. Like I could recognize clear. Joanne
Yeah,
was like this, and Kenneth was like this, and Ruth
mm-hmm.
was like this.
It's
And
like
Ariel was the only one that was always brown. Like, you know what I mean?
I had said, I was like, okay, we different shades, but we all like we different shades of brown. But at the end of the day,
Yeah,
what you say, we brown.
Brown,
So
yeah.
it's like I confused. What a
Yeah, in
problem
our
is.
household, it was always that way. My mom is brown, so she was like, "Are you just a brown family? Like we good,
yeah,
we all good. Ain't no difference in how you look. I still look alike. So again, from my face, like that was the thing, you know what I mean? Whereas, like you said, in different households, there might have been oh, who lighter, who darker, who thicker,
right.
who thinner type of situation. Our household was just who was more annoying. You know what I mean? Who was less annoying. Like, it never came off of physical or aesthetics. And I think that's where it gets
Yes,
hard when you have this colorism talk, because it comes down
mm-hmm.
to aesthetics. But then they see darker skin girl like myself. I don't know if you can see it, but my nose is different from my siblings. So in school, it wasn't about colorism, it's about your features, how
Mm-hmm.
much like the other person you look like. And I
Yes.
got my nose, they're like, oh, you got a witch nose. Look how straight and pointy your nose is.
That's your
Oh,
mouth.
no. I was
Oh,
like, what? Oh, you got a white person nose. That's what I got teased about. Oh,
Lord.
But it's
like,
funny because I remember because as we get older, we will go out places and we're like, oh, you have such a nice nose. Look at her
Uh-huh.
nose. And I'm like, okay.
back home was all about celebrating what looked different because everybody
Right.
looked the same. So
Mm-hmm.
okay, you have this different, like, oh my gosh, that's so different. And I was like, is it because it's different or is it because it seems white? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only thing I could never distinguish being back home.
Right.
But oftentimes, like you could have go home if you was a person from the States that had a different accent, everybody want to be your friend in school because oh hey that
Ooh,
accent
yeah.
sounds so
Yeah.
different. They young kid. So it's like for us back home, I feel like it's all about what's different because everybody really and truly is the same. Whereas in the States, they wants to be the same and nobody wants to be different. So it comes out to that's why colorism is so big up here versus back home. Because back home had slaves, a lot of slaves, you know what I mean? And they mixed with the natives there. And then they realized that, oh my gosh, Denmark already had some Danish people already settled here and they live in their life. That's what we call Frenchies. They were already settled there, living their best life in the boonies, while everybody else doing their thing. And we had the same thing. You had your breeding houses. We all know what the breeding houses was. The worst part, a worst place to be in back in the day of slavery days. Then you had your cotton pickers, you had your plantain, you had your sugar cane. That's what it was doing. It's
Mm-hmm.
all about sugar cane back home. And then you had people that was outside cutting down these sugar cane, and you had people in the master's house as close to being white, but it still wasn't one of those, oh, you need to be as light as a paperback thing. It still wasn't
Mm-hmm.
not there. I feel like here it was worse in the States and the continental US and Europe and places like that because the
Yeah.
white people had to exist with the black people. Whereas back home, pretty much the white people left. You know what I mean? They didn't have
Yeah.
a choice. Queen Mary was just buttoning on everything back home and getting people cleared out. That you have here now, white people had to figure out how to gain the minds of black people. And like you said, in the 1800s, that's probably when they were really trying to break up the unity that all the
Mm-hmm.
because there was supposed to be no difference. We all were slaves. We all didn't have any freedom of our own life. So I understand where up here is just so much more ingrained and shackled on them. But the only thing to get about it is to realize it's an old slave tactic. Just like I'm gonna throw it in there, beating your kids is an old slave tactic. You know what I mean? All those things we have to have discussions for. So you using your platform to have that discussion is another way it's gonna change. So somebody else can listen in and be like, "Oh yeah, that's true. I hear you.
Right, they can relate
Never
to
thought
y'all
about it like
experiences and
that."
everybody's experience. It's true. Because, fun fact, the term colorism didn't exist until, I think, 1982.
Whoa.
I
I
believe
think
it.
it's like when Alice Walker, she wrote a book and she used the term colorism to give it a name.
Oh
And
wow.
since then we use that. But back then, so that show you they didn't even know really. It's just a
Exactly.
feeling that you don't even have a name for. You're like, oh, I don't feel good, but what is this? So that shows you how a lot of people could have been ignorant to what was really going on. Look how long skin bleaching been around. And to touch
Yeah.
on what you said about the different household, that's why I always tell y'all think I'm joking, but the two of us was raised completely different.
Oh wow.
In the same household, raised completely different, a different life completely because um my sister, um remember she never went back home.
That's
I
true.
always used to go back home from since I was small.
Mm-hmm.
And then so she never got that experience, that exposure. And I was in different daycares in two totally different neighborhoods than her class of neighborhoods. So
Okay.
I was more in the more impoverished neighborhoods where there was, black, Hispanic, black, everybody mixed together. Everybody was just struggling. And she was in more of the refined ones. And so it's a whole different reality.
Yeah.
So that is how you see it's a whole different take on the same thing. So she's like fixated on it, you
Mm.
know? To where for me, like, who cares? Everybody needs to just, be great. Everybody's radiant. Everybody's glowing. That's my thing. So I'm so against it because of that. So it's so funny that you said that because you could be in the same household and two different results.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I thank you guys for sharing your stories with the platform because, like you guys said, this could help someone. There's people who really don't know what to do. They're scared to even discuss how they feel. And for
Mm-hmm.
you guys to be brave enough to share your stories and share those experiences, some people who never been to the islands and didn't even know that it wasn't as prevalent over there as here, they're getting that idea because they haven't been exposed to it. But yeah, I do appreciate you guys coming on the platform. Any last experiences or anything you guys could think of?
I can't. You see the way my brain does work is like you got access something to trigger it, and I'm like, oh yeah, remember this
Okay,
one.
okay, okay. I gonna say okay. I had this one time. I'm gonna share my experience then. I was working at a hospital, and I was going around getting information from the patients. And this one black girl, she stopped me and she was like, "Excuse me, miss, what you is?" So I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know what she mean. I'm like, does she mean if I'm a woman? I couldn't tell what she was trying to say. So I'm like, what do you mean? What you is? What you mixed with? I said, not, I'm not mixed. She's like, yes, you is. And I'm like, I'm mixed with black. If that's what you're asking me.
Like two
She
different
said,
shades.
no, no, because you're not. There's no way because you're not regular black. So I was like, regular. So I'm thinking they come in size. Cause she said regular black. I said, miss, I am. What do you mean regular? There's no regular. Black is black. She said, no, you're not regular black,
It's like
right?
a difference.
Yeah, because I thinking, what you mean? 'Cause for me, when I think regular, I think of like the drink, like a soft drink,
A
like
regular
small,
size.
medium, regular. So I say, and she said, yeah. I said, no, I am not. Like,
That's crazy.
so that just show you because of my skin color, her face was like, it's impossible for you not to be mixed. So that shows you that they're not even exposed to light skinned people. Some of them not even exposed to light-skinned people. If you light-skinned, you either Spanish or something else. You have to be
You
mixed
mix
with
with
something.
something.
Yeah,
And
you
it's
have to
not the
be.
case. It's not the case.
And you know, it's crazy. You say regular black, and the craziest thing that came to mind is I was told I wasn't regular black, but not because of color, because I come in the Caribbean. So you know how we just switch our
Oh,
accents and
yes,
all that.
yes.
Oh yeah.
So
Mhm.
stateside had to know black stateside, you know, supposed to be skin folks, but they ain't your kin folks. And they gonna be like, oh, but you ain't regular black. You see my color? You see me so? Because you lighter than me. So what I mean? But they feel like because you're from the West Indies or you from out of the country or the mainland of the US, you're not regular black. Just like the Africans, it was like you can't be regular black.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, we talking and yeah, we have our accent and we have our dialect, but they're gonna tell us we don't speak English. And they're gonna tell us you have a strong accent that's not from the US, so you can't be regular black. So we was told that from statesiders and we were told that from Africans. So we looking like, so
And the
what we
island you're
supposed
from
to
is
But
US, by the way.
I'm like, I'm from St. Thomas, you know, a US territory. So what am I? Like, oh, but you ain't really American.
but the thing is, a lot of people from the islands is like, even though we is U.S. Virgin Islands, it's like most people I've done seen people talk about on Facebook when they're doing a census, like, oh, why you put for your
Yeah.
whatever demographic.
Afro-Caribbean. I put
And
Afro-Caribbean.
it's because like I see the difference because like you feel different. Like I say, it's a completely different world when you
Culture.
move to the
Yes. Island
States.
people don't like to be
It's
considered black either
it's like
sometimes. They're like, no, I'm island, I'm West Indian, I'm this.
Because
it's
Because of
the
like
that kind
culture
of
is so
name.
but
different.
at
The
the same
culture
time it's
is
like you
so
proud of
different.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, yeah, I West Indian, we do this, we do that, we climb the
Yes,
mango tree
but
and
if
pick
a
the
police
mangoes.
officer pull up
But
to me, they ain't gonna be like, oh, but you's a different black.
Right,
exactly,
you're a West
No.
you're
Indian.
a West
They're gonna be
Indian black.
no,
You ain't these
no, you
regular
black.
They're gonna
black.
hear the accent and start treating me a little different, like to
No,
see
yeah.
if I've
Mm-mm.
been from here or not, because that's happened to me before. It's like I get stopped and they heard my voice. They see me the first off. When I roll up my window, they was expecting a Hispanic boy because people who drive my TC are usually Hispanic males. That's in South Florida. Okay, so they got a female and they got a black female, so they was a little bit more like hesitant. And I look at them like, don't kill me. You know what I mean? And so, of course, I'm a little nervous, so I start talking my hard accent, like, okay, why do officer I mean, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh, you from here? I was like, let me use that to go just
Like
to
Yeah,
get
use
what?
it to get out there and be like, no.
But it's crazy because you, on first sight, I don't say nothing. Yeah, you can see certain features of me, but like, okay, she have high cheekbones, she have a slender nose, a slender face. Okay, but she's still black. She just one of
Mm-hmm.
those esque black. You know what I mean? Until you hear me talk, and you have to decide if I'm gonna talk proper or if I'm gonna talk full on accent. None of those things matter. Just like I feel like skin tone shouldn't matter in the sense that, like you said, you regular black, you black mixed with black. It just so happened that the shades of black was a fair black with a regular black or fair black with a fair black. Not to say that you have any white immediately in your family. People don't
Mm-hmm.
realize that you can have 7 kids and they all could be
Oh,
different
come on.
Different
spectrums
colors.
because we our history has been rewritten so many times because we were imports. Let's be honest, we were imports into the US, into different to so many different South America,
Mm-hmm.
North America, different places in this Western world that our heritage and our just uniqueness is so meshed and mixed and that's why I don't understand why people have colorism. I say all
It
that
don't
to
even make
say
sense. It don't
it
even
don't
make
make
sense.
sense.
Because even me,
My
okay, I'm lighter than my mother even. So it's not even any of my parents.
exactly,
Because I probably get this from my grandmother who
Your
so it
great
don't even
grandmother and your father's side
father
was
side
twice
and
removed
somebody who
and
I
all
don't
that kind
even
of thing.
know. Why colorism exists is so silly to me. Because when you get down to it, if you had to do like a DNA, right? When I do them DNA kit, if only people know that I'm majority percentage Nigerian. The whole thing, if you look at the whole thing, was
The
like
University of West
over
Indian, they say
50%, over
Nigerian.
50% Nigerian.
day.
And everything else was like the northern west coast of Africa. Nothing
Oh,
else.
See? You ain't
So
even
it's like you don't even know, but you gonna tell me I'm not regular black.
exactly.
Cause what you seeing. But you never hear of French Creoles. You never hear of all these other types of people. Like, it don't make sense. Like you said, colorism is just a silly concept that we just, it's so sad to see how this silly concept has taken over so
The
many
black
people's
community,
lives.
everybody, not even just the black community. And we come down to
Everybody.
who colonized the world and what do they want to do. And those people that colonized the world did a great
A great
job of
job, my gosh.
infecting
The
every
expert man.
culture, because even people in Japan, and they trying to make sure they fair. I'm like, but I already pale. Like,
Exactly. It's like, how pale are you want again? Well,
colorism is everywhere. It's in every community. It just so happens that black people and people of African descent are so pushed forward in this whole race category
these
that
people.
instead of saying no, but all these other folks over there going through the same thing. No, but black people have to be the face of everything
Mm.
colored, right? So I
Colorism.
think that's the only reason it's such a distinguished characteristic in the black community. Although almost every community except for the white community feels it. The only thing the white community feels is gingers. Don't understand. That's a whole other discussion that I don't have no insight to, because that's not my world. But that whole colorism thing is just an infection in every culture that needs to be eradicated. How it's gonna get there?
A few years ago, it had, I think it was a Brazilian artist, and they did the whole colorism throughout the different countries and what that country's standard of beauty was, and how much it related to the European standard. And, and I think that was my first instance of noticing it in the different cultures, because they always had like the different like Latin Americas and stuff places where everybody had the fairer skin and the lighter, more blondish kind of hair to match with the European look. And I was like, this is crazy. I honestly would have never guessed, because like you say, it's mostly the black people you hear screaming it the loudest, especially now with the whole light skin, dark skin debate of which is what. And it's just crazy to me to think that all of this really happens. But I think one of the best comments I've heard was I used to work with this Puerto Rican guy, and I forgot what happened at work, but race ended up coming up, and he was like, the only thing different between me and you is I step off the boat, so I don't see the issue. And I was like, you're right, because honestly, we all get taken from the same one place to get moved around for what reason we all know. But it's like you lessen this argument of everything that happened, define you, and continue forward instead of leaving it. Because like everybody wants to put everybody like boxes. They need to label everything. They want to they have an understanding like this is what this is what that is. Use the exotic kind of black, use this the regular black, use the little country. It's like, no, we hear what you saying at the end. Black. That's it. Leave us alone. Ain't matter if I fair skin, ain't matter if a darker skin, because when things happen and they giving descriptions, black female, they gonna say a light skinned black female. No.
Yeah.
That's exactly, and not only that, because if you look at it, right, according to their own one drop rule, a lot of these people, if not everybody, is black in some way with this whole. So it's like it don't even make sense. That's why you see dark-skinned people, light-skinned people in India and all those places, because it's everywhere. I even watched a show that they went back and they found out that a lot of the first ever tribal communities in like China and stuff like that was black.
Whoa.
Because they're saying that it's like all originated from it and it came down. Genetics.
Right. Not only that, but just like the whole idea of like the what I always talk about, Pangea, the plate tectonic theory. It all started in Africa, so we got scattered. So let's be real. If we go back to the first day that the Earth existed, everybody black.
It's because they make melanin. You can't make melanin out of nothing. So the people highly melanated, it then whatever happened, it got diluted, and that's where you have the different shades.
Right. That's where the shades come from. Because we're talking about so much of thousands of years of like expansion and linking up with different people of different shades. What do you think is gonna happen?
Exactly.
Like, come on, people. But of course, we like to, like you said, be categorized and labeled. It's all labels. That's all it is.
There's a way to divide too. You want to
Uh-huh.
kind of divide. You want to get in there. You want to dismantle something that you think can become more superior than yourself. You have to dismantle it somehow. And let's be honest, the 60s was one of the best building stones for the Black community. 50s and 60s. Here comes the 70s and 80s where they're throwing crack cocaine because they can't get any away. They're throwing welfare in there because they need to have these women leave their husbands. So let me throw welfare in there, and you can't have any welfare state assistance if you have a husband. Okay, let me throw some crack cocaine in there so it could break up these lovely
Yep.
family homes. So now
You
you have
couldn't even
other
have a man in your
divided.
house, not even husband. No man,
Exactly.
period. So they took out the man
None.
because they want
Yeah,
him
so
in the jail.
it's
So
just another way of dividing a community. And
divide
it's
and
something
conquer.
that is dividing several communities because it happens in any community that melanin is even possible in, even in places where you don't think melanin could be possible, like Japan and China and all those places, they still think about those things. Because when they put on makeup, what do they do? They like the geisha look. They like that real fair, light, powdery look. It's not something that you could do away with overnight, but it's good to see that our generation is talking about it because now that we're older, we're like, wait, we grew up with this, and
Mm-hmm.
here it is now. Our younger siblings and our kids are possibly growing up with even more of this ingrained in them because of media. The media kind of controls and dictates what people are fixated on at the moment. And right now, that's the turn. Social media is black women against black women and black men pinned against each other. It's also, oh, who light, who dark, all those things to kind of tear that down. That's what social media for us is like. We don't know what social media for those across the pond is like, or for those in Japan is
Mm-hmm.
like, those in India. So it's like one of those things where we're so in this box where people try to place more box in this box that we have no idea what's really happening elsewhere because our media is showing us what they want us to fixate on.
Yeah.
So it comes down to educate your home, educate the people on your platform, make a space, like you said, Tiffany, make a space where people can learn, okay, I'm not the only one. This was a good conversation. And I think that's the only way to cure it. That's the only way to really rid it of its power is to continue to talk about it in a positive manner and to correct it. Correct it when we see it. That's why we have to be intentful when we have our own kids. Like you say, I understand the winging it, as in let the situation come to you and then you, but at the same
Same
time you
time,
have to be
proactive
mindful
also.
that sometimes you have to prep these kids because they don't know the blow they might walk in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was a good discussion. I think it might make a difference. Who knows?
I feel like this discussion have so much like I just fall off into different little things. Like we could be talking about this now, and then I don't thinking about the whole fact that the most times when I hear about being with like wanting to be with a lighter person is for hair texture. Because you don't want the 4C hair, you want a nice coolie hair where you could just comb it through and don't feel nothing like they have knots just like everybody else. What are you
Yeah,
talking
because everything, and it goes to show you how colorism is only a piece of
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
a
A
bigger
huge
thing.
thing.
It's a whole umbrella of, like we say, racism, discrimination, um, racial profiling, the hair thing, the whole thing with employment. In the employment sector, you can't wear your hair a certain way because it's not
Yeah.
professional.
Professional.
But who came up with the standard of what is professional? Is it
Exactly.
what you was used to seeing a lot? Why
Mm-hmm.
we have to change that whole dynamic? And it's good to see in places like New York, I think it is, that they changed that rule. You could go to
Yeah.
work now with
The
dreads.
crown act.
So
Yeah,
you'll
the
have to
crown.
kind of little by little go back to all these laws, rules that were created in antiquated times when we didn't know any better, and let's start there and change it. But like you said, it's a bigger issue,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So little by little, guys, it may not be perfect, But like we said, we just focus on our homes first and go from there. But thank you, ladies, for the great talk.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, I appreciate it. Couldn't do it without you guys. I wanted to give you guys that platform. And anytime you want to come back, you're welcome.
Of course. It
You know,
was good.
I always
Watch
I
this
just
one.
want to hear myself
Uh-huh.
talk for whatever reason, you know?
Right. But maybe you could come and talk about, like, the anime, or what you call it, the
The
blurred
blurred
recipe.
community.
I
Listen,
never
I
hear that
was so
because I see
confused.
black people with anime all the time growing
I
up. So
was like, and I thought it was regular. And then what happened was I have this coworker I used to work with, and she sent me a thing for Facebook called blog words, right? And I was like, okay, whatever. It's a group of black people. I cool with it because, like I said, I am predominantly white or a Hispanic. So it's like I can't just outright say things because if I do it, they're gonna be like, huh? But if I sit around black people, they're gonna gay. And if I sit around Caribbean people, they're definitely going gay. But it's like, you know what? I gotta step in a direction, right? And then when I started getting into it and I was hearing like the stuff that they're facing and being told, oh, why are you cosplaying this character? That
mm-hmm.
character isn't
Oh
black. And I'm like,
yes,
that
yes.
character is Asian and you're clearly white.
Mm-hmm.
So why are you doing cosplaying that one? I'm confused too.
Exactly.
It's like, how you gatekeeping
Yes.
something that you can't even gatekeep? You ain't never been Japan neither. You're not. You like, how you gonna tell me what I could do and what interests I must have? But
But they never hear of blackface. Like, come on. They've been doing that for so many years with blackface.
the blackfishing they're doing now, where they're doing the tans and stuff. I'm like,
Yes, the
I'm
fake tan.
so confused to how me and you having a shared interest is a problem. I'm like, we can't just all enjoy this. This should take
No. And then the braids too. Remember back then the braids was created back then, like during slavery times, and now they want to say is them create the cornrow.
And all them things, the
It's a new trend.
and stuff.
This
And
new trend
it's
is the
the
cornrows.
bantu nuts that they have
Yes.
now, the galaxy buns. I'm like, oh, my mother been giving me bantu nuts since kindergarten. So what are you talking about? I'm confused.
But that show you they like the 4C hair though. So
they don't like the 4C hair. They like the styles
that come from
straight hair. They want to appropriate into what they want and say, you know what, I see you have this, but let's change it to how I want it. I don't care that you've been doing it for generations and decades. This is what we're going to do now. And we're going to call it this instead. It's like, how you going to just straight up plagiarize me, man? You just you tell me how get I look, but Miss Susie may get it on, and she's hatching. How this is going to work. You know
what I remind me of? I remember back in the day, our aunties and even our moms, because my mom does it all now, all the rings on their fingers.
I want to do that so bad.
And how they made it a thing to have these rings on their fingers when back then they were like calling people Shanae and Shaquana if you had all them rings. I'm like, ain't it funny? Ain't it funny? But we already know what it is. We already know how the world works, right? It's nothing new. It's just about knowing that we recognize it, calling it out, don't letting them renege on it. Like, no. It is what it is.
The Columbus, that's what they're doing. Like, you could say it, but I know better, Susan. I know better. Okay? But that's the world we live in, unfortunately.
Yes. But thank you, ladies, again for taking time out. I'm going to see y'all. Any last words you want to say? Any shout outs you want to do?
Shout out to Mama.
Oh.
Wait, what the person said? P.O.P. holding it down.
Nah, that's we got VI up. Hey, VI up. Have a good night, ladies.
All right, good night, ladies. Bye.